Ron Hosko is a CBS News security analyst and former FBI assistant director. He's in our Washington bureau. So, Ron, it is very early in the investigation. What will be the most important steps taken at this time?
Well, they've already undertaken some of those, Elaine. It will be certainly to identify this person. And then if they have, and it sounds like they may have identified him, it is to go 1, 2, 3 hops out from him to look at his network, to get to a good understanding of what he has touched, what he has looked at, who he has encountered, who he's communicated with. Is this ISIS inspired? Was there a recruitment that took place somewhere in Great Britain? Did it involve overseas travel to the war-torn areas? And of course, what the Brits want to learn, like all of us do here domestically or in France or in Belgium, is what can we take away from this that would make us better? Counterterrorism officials have talked here for quite some time now about the distance between flash and bang, from inspiration to action. And how do we close that gap? How do we get law enforcement and the intelligence services in that gap between flash and bang so that we can disrupt these attacks, that we can defeat these attacks? Is it a communications issue? Is it an encryption issue? They're going to be looking at the whole boat of things.
Well, so authorities immediately said that they were investigating this as an act of terror. How is that decided, and what does it mean?
Elaine, with how activity has been in both Europe and in America, certainly after 9/11, that was our default posture in the FBI. So these big, significant attacks, it was terrorism until proven otherwise. For the FBI and for much of the federal law enforcement community, it was terrorism until proven otherwise. And it could be that you prove otherwise very quickly. However, our concerns were, from the President of the United States to the Director, do not let this happen again. That is a serious charge for law enforcement and for the intelligence services. And so I think that is becoming the default in Europe, that let's assume an attack that looks like it is against a civilian or a group of civilians like we saw here and law enforcement. It doesn't matter if you're talking about ISIS inspired. We are all potential victims in their eyes. It doesn't matter if you're a combatant, law enforcement, military. Civilian targets are viable targets for them, welcome targets for them. And so it opens up that aperture, and you have to look at it as terrorism, particularly with the drumbeat of terror activity in Europe, until proven otherwise.
Well, Ron, we don't know much about the attacker, but police believe he acted alone. What does that tell us? In some ways, that's a hopeful sign. Hopeful in a couple of ways. One, of course, in the immediate wake of an attack like this, the law enforcement and the intelligence services are going to look for connections. Is there a network? Is there another follow-on attack that may be similar or worse than the first? Is it going to be a series of attacks? So that it might be a lone offender inspired at a distance should hopefully lower the temperature in the UK and in Europe until it spikes up again. They'll want to examine that, but it is a hopeful sign. And the fact that this was, what I would regard, and I think others, as a low intensity, even though fatal attack and horrific attack, low intensity with an edged weapon and a car or a vehicle. That's a hopeful sign too, because this isn't the top blowing off of a bus or a tube attack, something that has the risk of killing and injuring dozens of people in a single fatal incident. Well, how does that attack affect what U.S. officials will be doing here?
Yeah, there is always coordination. The FBI has a legal attaché in London. I know New York Police Department has representatives in multiple places in Europe, DHS. So there's going to be communication and coordination at multiple levels to make sure if there are takeaways that would strengthen America, something we're not doing today, whether it's around the British Embassy or in another location. If this person had any connections to people domestically, trust me, as soon as he's identified and those connections are identified, the FBI will be running down those connections
to see if there's some relationship that we should be worried about and that we may have to interfere with.
Well, we know the president spoke with British Prime Minister Theresa May. Give us a sense, how would you assess the level of information sharing between officials in Britain and the U.S.?
Well, the Brits are among our most trusted partners. As you know, they are one of the what are known as the Five Eyes, and the Brits, the Canadians, the Aussies, and the New Zealanders, and America. And so our most trusted, sensitive information is fairly routinely shared among those nations because of the level of trust. So I'm very confident that there is the right coordination, there's the right communication going back and forth. Certainly the Brits would know and don't need to be told any resources that we might have to bring to bear to help them. We're going to offer them and we would deliver them. And I know that the inverse of that is true as well.
All right, Ron Hosko in Washington for us. Ron, thank you.
My pleasure.